passive by broad subjects, but I want to go over a little bit like the theory so we can understand the underlying concepts that we're looking to use when we're looking to pass, and it just involves a little bit of going through some of the concepts. Okay, so one of the main concepts at play at first is range. Okay, so I'll speak a little bit about what I mean by range and what's in the range out and what's out of range. And then also we'll look at the 45-degree principle, which is basically where you're looking to grip or position your body when you're looking to pass. And then when we get into the session, we should have a little bit more of an underlying understanding of the pins that we're looking to utilise as part of this week's material. Okay, so the first thing is just to give a bit of context of the guard. Okay, we're looking at passing the guard, so we should have some understanding of kind of the structure. So we'll talk about the levels of the guard first. So really simply, we always want to divide our partner up into distinct levels, and we define the levels by the joints. Okay, so the ankles, the knees, the hips, and the shoulders. So stretch your leg out so you can see all of them. Ankles, knees, hips, shoulders would be all levels of joints that we're looking to move through as we're looking to pass. Okay. When we're at the feet or the ankles, we're in the long range. When we pass the feet, but we get stopped by the knees, we're in the middle range. When we pass the knees and we get to the hips, we're at the close range. Okay, so there's 3 levels of the guard we're looking to deal with. Now, when we talk about the levels of the guard, we can define ranges that we're looking to control within. Okay, so groups, okay, or pairs of joints that are neighbours will form control boxes. Yeah, so if I'm at the ankles, my control box is drawn by connecting the knees together to the ankles. Okay, you can see there's a box that I'm looking to control there. Okay, when I'm at the knees, the box is to the hips, so there's the control box. When I'm at the hips, it's at the shoulders. Okay, so it's 3 levels of the guard, and every level has a control box that I'm looking to control within. Everyone follow me so far? So when I'm looking to work through the guard, I can use that understanding to define when I'm controlling in range and when I'm controlling out of range. Okay, so in range would be controlling within the box. Yeah, so I'm at the feet, so my control is here. Okay, I'm at the knees, whatever that guard may look like, and my control is here. Yeah, I'm at the close range, and my control is here. Okay. So that's easy to understand as in range, but it's important to understand as out of range, okay? Because that's where I can get swept or submitted or lose control, okay? So out of range, like a real extreme one, would be I'm at the feet, okay? I'm ducking so I'm in shot. I'm at the feet and I reach to the shoulders, okay? So this is a very much out of range guard because this is the box I need to be controlling within, and I'm controlling in a different box. Okay, can anyone see the problem with controlling like this? What am I at risk of?
Getting swept.
Getting swept and armbarred. Okay, so the two options that Smithy has here. He can, like Tom and Ag, he can lift me over his head. Yeah, very easy to lift me up. Or he could throw up an armbar. Okay, so they're more likely to occur in that situation. So anytime I stray beyond the box of the control box that I should be in, I put myself at risk of getting submitted or swept. Does that make sense? Because it's important to understand, because your partner can bait and draw you into positions which feel like they are control, and then switch them into positions where you're not in control. Does that make sense? So, for example, what we've been looking at this week, we were looking at the body lock. Okay, I'm actually a fairly long range, okay, between long and medium with the butterfly, because I'm at the feet and the knees kind of simultaneously. If I reach out of range like this, I'm giving up my arm in an out of range position, and if I can't close the distance to try and simulate being in range, then my arm can get attacked for the near lock. Does that make sense? So it's really important that we understand the differences between being in range and out of range, because you need to be able to identify the danger. It doesn't necessarily mean that you'll never take out of range grips, but when you do take them, you have to understand there's risk involved. Okay, so another example would be, I'm in a normal half guard. Smithy's got an overhook. okay, and he manages to put his knee on my hip, or knee shift. I've gone from in range to out of range in one movement. If I totally ignore the fact that knee is on my hip, I'm at risk of being swept or submitted. Does that make sense? But I would have to address it either by bringing my arm back so that I can get to the hip and be back in range, or by removing the thing that put me out of range so that I can go back to being in range. Does that make sense? It's really important to understand, because when the variables are high and things are happening really fast, you can get drawn into those positions and not understand that you're at risk. Okay, so like fundamentally you want to be risk averse and you try and stick to this as much as possible. As you get more experience, you can break the rules a bit, but you do it with like the red flag going off in the back of your mind, like, okay, I'm in trouble. I need to make sure that I get out of this problem so that I can progress forward. Okay, so an example of what I mean by that is you might like dive for upper body control while you're out of range and think it was worth the risk to get closer, and then you have to undo the out of range portion, and now it was all fine. Yeah, so as you get more experience, you and your partner get more experience, you will have to get into those situations where you're giving up something, like, oh, I could get caught, and then you make up the difference and it's okay in the end. Okay? Or they're good enough to stop it and they sweep you. Okay, so that's out of range. That's the concept of range. Okay, so ways in which we can deal with that, okay, make sure we're always safe. Like a really common rule that you'll hear is about keeping your elbows close. Okay, if I can keep my elbows close to my body, I automatically stop myself from being out of range. Okay, because if I'm trying to pass at the long range here, to break the rule of having my elbows close, yeah, I now give myself the opportunity to reach out of range. Okay, or I get forced into that by the arm getting pulled forward. Okay, so by keeping my elbows close, it automatically keeps me in the range I want to be in. Okay, so like as a kind of working rule that you can use when you're looking to use these positions to pass, if your elbows are close to you, okay, hips, knees, or anywhere across protecting the inside space, then the chance of you being out of range is reduced. Cool? The second thing is to do with the 45-degree principle. Okay, so those control boxes I talked about, the 45-degree principle defines where we want to control within those boxes. Okay, so a really easy one to understand would be the close range. Okay, it happens at all the ranges, but the variability, like the degrees of freedom are more the further down the feet I am. The degrees of freedom, I mean like the amount of things that can move makes it more difficult when I'm here. So to understand it from the close range helps give like a broader picture of it. Okay, now we can see the control box, yeah, shoulders and hips. The 45-degree principle says that when I'm in the control box that I'm in, I want to control the corner that's closest to me. Okay, so in this case, the corner that's closest to me is this hip. Okay, so I'm looking to create an anchor point on that hip so that it's completely isolated in space. I hold it with my legs in this case to the point where it's stuck in position. Okay, I would do it in a different body position, but while I'm talking, let's imagine I'm pinning that with my knees. What this does, it forces the hips to face me. Okay, now if Smithy wants to maintain posture and alignment, okay, which we always want to maintain, he has to make sure his hips and his shoulders and his head are all facing in the same direction. Okay, so if I'm controlling his hips and they're facing me, I know that this shoulder wants to follow suit. Yeah, he has to do this to maintain posture. So this tells me where my fight is. Okay, if I've pinned this and he's facing towards me, my fight is to prevent the rotation of the shoulder. Okay, make sure that shoulder stays flat. So that's the 45 element. I'm at this corner and I'm attacking the diagonal at the top corner of the control box. Doesn't always mean it has to be direct. Yeah, I could do this and get that to drop, but the outcome is what I'm looking for. Yeah, the outcome is that shoulder needs to go down to the floor. Yeah, so he wants rotation and I'm looking to deny him the opportunity to have it. Does everyone understand what I mean so far? So when we've looked at these different positions, these different pins, essentially that's what we've been doing. Okay, we've been doing it from a more complex scenario where the legs are still involved. So we're kind of out of range, okay, because it's a bit more advanced. but we're trying to force the anchor point and still apply the 45. With me so far? It's useful to understand because when you're in these positions, you know, I don't know what goes through your mind when you're rolling, but to me it's like, okay, what do I need to do? Where are the fights that are important? And the kind of the main concepts are always the first things you cycle through. Am I in range? Yes. Okay, that's fine. Am I breaking my opponent's alignment? Basically, am I using the 45? At the moment, no. Okay, how can I make sure that I am applying the 45? That shoulder needs to go to the floor. Okay, do whatever I can to put that shoulder to the floor. Okay, all these things are things that you need to check off when you're in these positions. The last one would be connection. That's essentially control of the inside space. Yeah, so I'm looking to be in control of the inside space, inside the frames, and when you're against advanced people, they'll be looking to use their frames to deny you that connection. Everyone understand so far? Okay, so we can go back to what we looked at on Monday with that understanding, and we can just start building up the resistance and basically turn it into some positional sparring. Cool? So person on the bottom is in the butterfly. We'll go this angle. Okay, we're looking to create the body lock. We're driving ourselves in. Essentially, we want to create a position where we have enough control on the hips that it simulates an anchor point so that we can have our head nice and high. Okay, so we're driving into this position. Okay, for me to have the anchor point, I'm looking to keep my hip heavy. Okay, keep his hooks from being able to lift me, and then looking to come off to the side. Okay, like I said, I've started out of range. Once I get here, I'm back in range. Okay, so I'm back in a position where, okay, I don't have to worry so much about being submitted. Now I can go back to the job of passing the guard. Cool? Okay, so let's just get moving with the entry, get comfortable with our body position, then we start building up the resistance. Yeah? Go. Stop this.